It's a Thursday and you are listening to the Girls Table Radio Show. Siyaxolisa bakithi. I'm sure abantu bebesilinde ngo4 o'clock kusukela namhlanje kusiya phambili lizabe lisithola ngo4:15. Siyaxolisa. It's the Girls Table. My name is Begezela Mguni. Namhlanje ngilo Malvin Mkhudu from MISA oku advocacy expert. It's unfortunate, I'm sure today I should be using English so that he understands what we are saying. And I also have Umuta. Muta, please bingelela balaleli and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Begezela. Good afternoon, abalaleli. Igama ngumuta Violet, a student at NAST. Thank you.
Malvin, please bingelela abalaleli before we start with the show today.
Good afternoon, listeners. My name is Malvin Mkhudu. I'm the advocacy expert with the Media Institute of Southern Africa. Happy World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you so much. Kusasa you World Press Freedom Day, and as the Girls Table ngoba ishow yethu is today, we decided ukuthi sivele siqala uku-celebrate namhlanje singalindi u3 May. Like I said, namhlanje ngilo Malvin lo Muta, and World Press Freedom Day is celebrated under the theme A Press for the Planet, journalism in the face of environmental crisis. I'll start with you, Malvin. Can you please explain to us what the theme means? The theme is the press, a press for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. Please explain to us what the theme means. Please use a simple English so that even those who do not understand this are able to understand what is kulumangani. Over to you, Malvin.
Okay, as you might be aware, the world has been facing a deepening environmental crisis, which we have also seen in our context in Zimbabwe, manifesting itself through the El Nino, which has now caused a drought, which is resulting in many people needing food aid. So because of this, UNESCO then coined this theme to amplify the role of the media and journalism in terms of access to information and dissemination of information that play a key role to ensure and secure a sustainable future in the respect of rights of individuals when it comes to the environment. So even in our own constitution, we also have the right to a clean environment. So it is in this context of a deepening crisis in terms of climate change, deforestation, even pollution and things like that, that we then came up with this theme so as to amplify the role of the media in raising awareness in terms of the environmental crisis we have, but also in playing a watchdog role in terms of exposing those who may be playing a role in terms of damaging the environment.
Thank you so much, Malvin. I hope the audience is listening. And please, if you have any contribution towards this topic today, do not hesitate to send a WhatsApp message to Sky's Metro WhatsApp number 077-446-0100. Namhlanje, we are talking about journalism in the face of the environmental crisis, and I'm joined by Malvin Lomuta. Let's go to Umuta Sizuguti yena utini. Muta, what is the role of journalists on environmental crisis reporting?
Okay, thank you. So the role of a journalist in environmental crisis. First of all, maybe people may think ukuthi environmental crisis not affecting people. So journalists are there to point out ukuthi not only is the environment being affected, but large as individuals are being affected. So I believe the role of a journalist is to actually take stories from people, factual and actual stories that are happening out there. Which is loss of biodiversity, abantu bekhulume, and it's the role of the journalist to do that, and also raise a certain awareness ukuthi yes, indeed we're facing an environmental crisis in the world.
Thank you so much. I noticed ukuthi ukhuluma ngokuthi writing factual stories. We will come to the issue of disinformation and misinformation around our stories, our environmental crisis. But now I'd want us to maybe look at ukuthi what is the importance of journalism and freedom of expression in the context of the environmental crisis, Malvin.
Okay, the importance of freedom of expression is that we have communities all around the country, even all around the world, where these negative environmental practices are going on. For example, it could be the pollution of rivers, it could be the cutting down of trees to cure tobacco and things like that. We need to have a robust media that affords citizens access to information about what's happening, but also that is allowed to express itself and give a voice to communities to actually talk about those things that are happening in their communities. Some people are having their cattle dying because of gullies that are being dug by people who are mining different minerals in our communities. But if you want to talk against those people, sometimes you may be victimized or you can even be sued by some powerful corporates who are engaged in these practices. So we need a media that is robust and that is free to express itself, and that is also free to give citizens a platform to express themselves, to talk about these things that are affecting them.
Thank you so much. You talked about access to information. What is MISA doing to make sure that we have enough access to information on environmental crisis? MISA being the Media Institute of Southern Africa, what are you guys doing to make sure that we have enough information about the environmental crisis?
First and foremost, we are also trying to capacitate the media so that they are able to pick up the correct stories that citizens need to know about, and that will support the developmental agenda of citizens by giving them vital information. But secondly, we are also capacitating citizens to know about the Freedom of Information Act, which enables them to seek information from either public bodies or even private institutions that may be engaged in environmental degradation or other activities. So citizens can write to these organizations requesting, for example, contracts or even environmental assessment impact certificates to ensure that whatever they are doing is lawful. So there's this tool that they can use to actually access information, and we've been training them. As early as today, we partnered with the ZMC to train people who attended World Press Freedom Day in Harare about how they can utilize the Freedom of Information Act to seek information that they may want to know to exercise their other rights.
Nginanzelela ukuthi isikhiwa sesinganishaya, but what Malvin is saying bakithi uthi silalo ilungelo so lokuthi sidinge i-information. IMISA is training people to make sure ukuthi we know about our freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We have a right to ask ama questions esifisa ukubazazi. If we want to access any information bakithi asikhululekeni siyidinge leyo information. In case you are wondering ulalele the girls table, I'm sure abantu bajayele ukuthi ngesikhathi lezi siyabe sesivalelisa, but today we are on air and talking about journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. Bakithi nxa ulombono, iSky's Metro WhatsApp number ngu-0774460100. Ake siye nathamanzi bakithi. I'm sure abalaleli lawo were able to go and drink water. Ngilokhu ngisakhangela ukuthi maybe I'll get a comment from someone who's probably a journalist. Kumbe omunye sitsho ukuthi I felt like vela work ama stories when on environmental crisis kugcwele istory ngepolitics, but indaba zabo climate change ziyasi affecta as it is in Bulawayo sikhala ngamanzi. I-climate change leyo yikho namhlanje ngithe let's talk about i-environmental crisis, basitshele ngabo climate change into ezinjalo. Bakithi, let me go to Umuza and hear what she has to say. Muta, how can disinformation and misinformation about environmental crisis be curbed, and how can journalists raise more awareness on environmental crisis?
Okay, so I'll first of all look at how disinformation and misinformation can be curbed. So at times, disinformation, as much as we say it's bad or what, some people actually use that for their own benefit. To go to about a story just to capture people's attention or something. But literally, that's when we see disinformation lay. It's leading to maybe abantu validate certain stories being told by the journalists. So it's very, very important they do effectual checking and check for stories are right, true best stories. And as well as they can actually collaborate with e-news media. You know, these days we're just relying on digital platforms. So e-news media, we know there is nothing that we can say it's 100% true, but we're saying that collaboration is actually for the better. And a practice of fast checking, as I've said, organizations, even us as individuals, how to validate a story, is this a true story or it's not a true story. And in terms of misinformation, we can say at times use of jargons, those bigger words. Maybe if stories are being told in simpler languages, especially in English, which even umuntu or grade 4 may actually read and tend to understand, which okay, so we're not talking about the loss of biodiversity, we're saying this and that.
Thank you so much. I hope our journalists are listening. As journalists, our duty is to disseminate information for public consumption. Imagine usebenzisa amabala thina as the public esingawazwisisiyo uyabe yini beyenzile i-purpose yabo of disseminating information. Let me come back to you, Malvin. Maybe ngibuza ukuthi are there any stories, any fake stories maybe about environmental crisis esesike sahlangana lawo, be it climate change, environmental degradation, illegal mining, because we can't talk about misinformation and disinformation kanti awekho ama stories anjalo. Maybe if you could just give us a few examples before we talk about the role that MISA plays in curbing misinformation and disinformation about environmental issues.
Okay, thank you. Fortunately, today we had an expert in environmental issues and climate change, and he was urging journalists to be factual in their reporting. Some of the misinformation that happens is innocent. It's because maybe you don't understand the technical issues that are at play, or you use words loosely without really understanding the effect of the words that you are using. What you may be calling a drought may actually not be a drought, and things like that. So there's a need to build capacity of journalists so that they understand the technical issues, because the environment is generally a scientific or technical issue where you need to have sources who are knowledgeable. It could be scientists, it could be different types of experts, it could be engineers and so forth. So there's a need for organizations such as ourselves to invest in capacity building of the media to ensure that they understand these issues, but also to invest in technical sources who then give a voice to some of these stories instead of relying on sources that may not be knowledgeable on these issues. So I think I agree with the fact that there's that problem of misinformation, disinformation in the environmental story. caused by perhaps some of our media colleagues not really understanding the technical issues and the need to invest in their capacity building.
Thank you so much. I hope the journalists are listening, and I hope MISA is coming with capacity building to make sure we don't use these words loosely. Sikhuluma izinto that people don't understand. Malvin, what role does MISA Zimbabwe play in curbing misinformation and disinformation about environmental issues? What do you guys do other than capacitating people? Journalists, so to say.
Well, at the moment, we've been capacitating people, but we've also been having partnerships with organizations such as Think that are experts in terms of fact-checking issues. So they've been playing a role. I think I've seen 2 or 3 stories to do with the environment that they've fact-checked, and I think that is very helpful. When there was that, I think there was a heat wave, if you remember, sometime this year or last year, and I think I saw them doing a story around that. So those are also partnerships that we have with fact checkers. But at the moment, we are just training journalists on how they can fact check, on how they can identify fake news, misinformation, disinformation. We are not only training journalists, but we are also training community-based organizations, because it's also important for ordinary people to be able to have these skills in terms of identifying fake news.
Thank you so much for mentioning that you're not just training journalists, because namhlanje everyone is a journalist. So will a citizen journalism where people write stories without even going to a class ukuthi umuntu ayefundela ukuba i-journalist. So it's important to also think of people, ordinary people who are not journalists, because there are some of the people abapusha i-misinformation and disinformation. Ngicela bakithi senatha amanzi ngizwa sengiphefumula nzima, umuntu angaphela umoya bakithi. 2 minutes sinatha amanzi. If you've just joined us, you are listening to the Girls Tape. We are celebrating World Press Freedom Day. Before ifike mphosa ngathi i-belated kanti ayikadluli ngikhona izafika kusasa. I-theme ithi yona a press for the planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. And I am with Malvin Mkudu and Umutsa. Bakithi Umutsa lazini Umutsa ibizo lakhe lesibongo sakhe mina kuyangechaya bakithi ngumutsa Mutitsa Wanda. Yes, let me go back to Malvin before Umutsa Angchai. Malvin, maybe if you could explain to us what are the challenges that journalists face in seeking and disseminating information on pollution, climate change, animal poaching, and illegal mining in Zimbabwe.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, there are issues of capacity gaps where they may not actually understand the technical issues around mining, the technical issues around some of those specialized areas. So they need to be trained for them to be able to tell the story more accurately. There's also need for them to be networked with different sources in those areas who can then give them an accurate story around those issues. But like I said, also some of the pollution and some of the environmental malpractices that we are seeing are being practiced by corporates or by people who don't want for these things to be exposed. So it becomes a safety and security issue where, for example, if you start to write about poor mining practices in some area, you can then become a target for victimization. forth. So there's safety and security issues that need to be addressed for journalists to be able to tell their story. I think I was somewhere some 3 weeks ago where journalists were appealing for protection from the police so that they are able to do the investigative stories without hindrance. So there's that risk that when you begin to play the watchdog role of exposing environmental malpractices, you may be targeted by powerful commercial interests that profit from those practices.
Thank you so much. Journalists are not safe while doing their work, especially when we talk about issues to do with illegal mining. We have a story about illegal mining ezenzeka kwezinye indawo, which affects us. Uzithole wena usungumuntu ose-victimized lapho yabo khona. But thank you so much for noting these challenges, Malvin. I hope someone out there is listening. It's important to keep our journalists safe. Anything that you'd want to say, Mutsa, before we close the show today?
Okay, so I wanted to ask Mr. Malvin, Uguti, as IMISA, what are they doing in terms of protecting ama whistleblowers or those journalists that are actually under attack? Because in a way, when we're celebrating World Freedom Day, anti-CAC celebrated the freedom of expression of the news and media. So now what are they doing to protect that, the whistleblowers and those journalists?
Malvin, you only have 2 minutes to respond to her question. I hope you got her.
I got her to say, what are we doing to enhance the safety of journalists?
To protect whistleblowers and journalists who write stories about environmental crisis.
Okay, what we are doing, for example, today in Rwanda, we actually have a team training journalists in Rwanda about safety and security. So that's one of the things that we do, capacity building. We train journalists in safety and security. But we also have what we call the media defense fund, where if a journalist gets in trouble when they are discharging their duties, they can call us. And whether they need legal representation, we'll be able to assist them in that regard. When it comes to whistleblowers, we've been advocating for policy that protects whistleblowers. I understand there will soon be a whistleblower bill, and we've been advocating for provisions that will ensure that whistleblowers are protected when they provide information that exposes corruption. So it's a process, but it's something that we are advocating for in the legal reform agenda.
Thank you so much, Malvin. I think we are running out of time. Thank you so much for making time. Thank you so much, Mutsa, for being part of the show. Until next time, from the Girls' Table, Siyabonga. And please note, like I said, our show has been moved from 4 o'clock to 4:15. Until next week, same time, same time, same place. From me, your host, Siyabonga. Thank you, Mutsa. Malvin, thank you so much. Please don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. Good Twitter is table_girls. Facebook is the Girls Table. Instagram the.girls table. Skona lago YouTube. I heard besiti lago TikTok sekuseskona. So go and check in the Girls Table and like our work. Thank you so much.